Welcome back to another episode of Up in the Blue Seats, your favorite Rangers podcast from the New York Post, featuring your favorite people. As always, I'm Mollie Walker, and I'm joined by Hall of Famer Larry Brooks and former Ranger Brian Boyle. Guys, it's been a couple weeks since we last got together, but we have plenty to get into. Let's start with the most recent news, shall we? Late last night, word spread that the Rangers and Ducks are in advanced talks on a deal that would send Chris Kreider, the longest tenured Ranger, to Anaheim. Larry and I were both told that conversations are ongoing and will continue on today, on Wednesday. Larry, you have been writing about this as a strong possibility since before the season even ended. April 7th, you wrote a column about how Kreider's tenure was likely coming to an end, and then again later this offseason. So what are you hearing about the deal at this moment in time? And do you think this is a necessary move for the Rangers, or why do you think Chris Drury went this route first?
Well, I've been told that the ongoing discussions will continue today. And I think they're pretty far advanced in this. I don't think there's going to be any issue about a no trade list. I've been told, for weeks that Drury has been in constant communication with Kreider's camp, and I don't think there's going to be any issue here. Do I think this is a necessary move? I think it's a good move for both parties. I just think it's time. It is time. I think it would benefit Kreider to have a new environment. I think the Rangers obviously need to get younger. They need to clear some cap space. It was a great 12-year marriage that splintered last year. And so I think this was a move. The Rangers need to reset. Their core that they entered last season with is actually going to be no more. And I think this is something that this is a reset for the Rangers. He's a very popular player. And he will remain a very popular player. He was the last link to John Tortorella's era. So there's a lot of history that goes with Chris Kreider, but at some point it ran its course. It just did. The whole thing ran its course. It just did. It was ugly, and we need a new day here. The Rangers need a new start.
Brian, how do you like Anaheim as a landing spot for Kreider?
Well, in Anaheim, I believe it was Pat Verbeek who expects to make the playoffs. They had a 22-point jump in the standings, and a somewhat hamstrung Greg Cronin got them there, and they made a change anyway because Joel Quenneville became available, or was an option. Say what you want about the situation. I played for him. He's a great coach. They're trying to make the playoffs. And if you look at Chris Kreider and what he can do in a new environment, I honestly think, like Larry said, this could be beneficial for him. Do I think he would be the first person I would take off my roster? Probably not. But I think the reason that it's going to get done and you can get a valued return is because I still think there's value there as the player. His contract isn't outrageous. Yes, he had his worst season last season. There was a number of different reasons probably why. No one particularly had a great season, save for maybe Cooley and Panarin. But it's that's what happens. So if you need to make a change, sometimes it's not the guy you really want to move. And I'm not saying that's the case here. I just think if I'm on the outside looking in, I still think Chris Kreider could bounce back, but if you can get a return for him, the shockwaves that'll send, and you can understand in the room, this is how we do things. And we don't really care if you like it or not. If you don't perform, we have to make changes. And so listen, he had I was there when he got into the league. I got to watch him. I've, become friends with Chris Kreider and seen what he's been able to do. I know how much he cares. I know how much, and you can't have a career like he had without what he's put into it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just crazy 2 years ago and picking up hats off his front lawn and how
Yeah.
this year went. And
Yeah.
hopefully as more time goes, you can look at this season as an aberration and appreciate all the things that he has done for the organization. As I know we all do that are talking right now, some fans hopefully can get there as well.
Yeah. I think this would be a mutually beneficial deal. And I agree with you. Listen, I had always thought, even, going into last year, off the Florida series, he had 3 years at 6.5, and people were saying, well, that's a detriment. I thought that was a benefit. I think that's a great contract. I expect him to be a very good player. He's even last year, he was one of the best penalty killers in the league, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We don't know quite the extent of his injuries, but I don't know how he only scored one power play goal in 2025. I think he was 30 or 32 games. He scored one power play goal. He wound up. He's now tied for the all-time franchise leader in power play goals with Camille Henry. When he tied that record in January. So you put him in front, and you've got a good power play. And I think you've got your specialty teams. You've got a guy who can rely on both on the power play, penalty kill, and he's a veteran. He's been there. I think he'd be a good addition for Anaheim.
And he's got some familiar faces there as well. Ryan Strome, Jacob Trouba, Frank Vetrano, got a whole host of former Rangers. So, and I mean, he is a pro's pro. And if I'm Anaheim, which I think was also part of the reasoning for wanting Jacob Trouba, is, you want a pro's pro veteran who's been around the block to show the younger players how things are done in the National Hockey League. But I'd like you both to weigh in on this next question. And it's kind of a heavy one, so brace yourselves. Do you think that this past season and the way that it ended tarnishes Chris Kreider's Rangers legacy? And what are the odds his jersey is ultimately lifted to the rafters at some point?
I don't think it tarnishes his legacy at all. I would hope that folks recognize the big picture. The Rangers went to the conference finals 5 times in Kreider's career. And once in the final, he was once to the final. He's a very good playoff player. He's been an outstanding Ranger for more than a decade. Do I think his number will be retired? No. And I wrote after the hat trick last year when there was when there was so much talk about the number, I said I thought that his number would be retired if he played his entire career with the Rangers and if he won the Stanley Cup.
My thoughts on whether or not he would be. I thought after the hat trick, the natural hat trick in the conference finals, I'm like, this guy's going up there.
Yeah. Oh,
and,
God. What a moment.
Because there aren't a ton of cups or cup winners to name where the debate necessarily hinges on if you won a cup, right? But this year doesn't help anything. Obviously, this past season, rather, does not help anything. But I still think about what happened, last spring, how epic that was. That's legendary stuff. And this year, no one had a good year. Nobody played well. And he is not necessarily like a play driver. Adam Fox didn't start well. He doesn't get going on the power play for that reason. There are other players. Obviously, Mika had some serious struggles throughout the year. A lot of these things are tied to the production of other players as well. So he didn't look like he could skate well for periods, still above average skater, even with the injuries, but he couldn't be Chris Kreider this year. So I think the injury, especially particularly the back injury, caused a lot of that, and he tried to gut it out. So I look at it big picture. No, it's not a tarnish, but it doesn't help his case. 2 more years at the Chris Kreider we were used to, I don't think it's a question. Retiring as a Ranger, yeah, I think that would put him in line in the next few years. It wouldn't be a ceremony, the next season after he retired, maybe, but maybe it would. Mm-hmm. I will say this. I think regardless of what happens, he's going to be welcome back in that arena to cheers.
Of course.
He could do things with the organization because of all he's given if he wanted to. Mm-hmm. And they are a great organization with their alumni, with Jackie Farrell and with Adam Graves. They really do awesome things, but I don't think he's done. I think he's going to go and, like Larry said, he's going to play well in Anaheim. Mm-hmm. What it does for him, his career is what it was. Like, they haven't won a cup since '94. He was a big part of the reason they got as far as they did a lot of times. I think people should accept that and be happy about that and appreciate him for what he's done. I don't know if he goes up in the rafters anymore. I thought it was a done deal after the Carolina series. I just get caught up in it.
Well, nobody could have foreseen last season.
Of course, you shared the room with him, but he has been an exemplary teammate as far as I know. He goes out of his way with younger players, and he is such a private person that we don't know percentage of the work he does in the community and with kids and with charities. And he was they made a Mr. Ranger award named after Roger Bear, Mr. Ranger, and Chris Kreider was the first winner. So, I mean, he was Mr. Ranger for a long time, but there's a threshold. Look, I would not, I'd be happy if his number went up. It'd be great.
Of course, we all would be happy.
I just don't think it. I just don't think it will happen.
Yeah.
Very rare air. There's a reason.
Yeah.
Well, we will monitor that situation before it becomes official. So be on the lookout for that. Could happen while we're still recording this podcast. We don't know. Anyway, in other news, the Rangers did fill out the remainder of Mike Sullivan's coaching staff, and one particular member is a familiar face. Yes, David Quinn is coming back to Broadway for a second act as an assistant under his good friend and former Boston University teammate, Mike Sullivan.
Awkward.
Guys, I taught Brian before we came on that you can lean into your mic here and the
awkward
and it makes for a much louder, funnier. So now that's going to be his bit. You can look out for that in future episodes. We got Joe Sacco and Ty Hennis are also joining as assistants from Boston and Pittsburgh, respectively. Hennis actually worked under Sullivan with the Penguins the last 2 seasons. And aside from Hennis, they're all BU alums, which is just so funny. So naturally, let's go to the BC alum, shall we? Yeah. Brian, you'd overlapped with Hennis at BC for a season and in Pittsburgh, right? So what's there to know about them?
So Ty Hennis was a phenomenal teammate. He was a senior when I got into BC as a freshman. Wasn't a skilled player in what his role was at BC. He was, a third or fourth line energy player and worked extremely hard. He was a great leader in the gym in how to be a man. You're growing up, you're 18 years old, you go into this gym with these guys. And Ty, I think, was 23 or 24 at the time. He played a couple of years as junior. He was phenomenal. He was just a great teammate. And then same guy when I got to Pittsburgh, but way more skilled. He was their skills coach, and he's doing the drills before practice. I remember getting there in training camp. I'm like, Ty, you're a better player now than you were in college. He loves hockey. He loves the game. He is a great human being to be around a team of players. And if you'd asked Sidney Crosby about him, they worked closely. The reputation for Sid and how much he likes to do before and after practice, how much he works at his game. Well, Ty was the one with him. So whether Ty was teaching Sid or Sid even taught Ty stuff, like he's going to be a huge add. And I feel bad for him because there's all those BU scumbags that he has to coach with. But he's going to be on an island in that room. So he's going to call me once in a while. Yeah, and Joe Sacco, man, he was really in a tough spot. He's been in Boston. He's seen what a real, professional, culture-driven organization looks like. He obviously, I don't think he's gotten sort of the breaks as some coaches do, but a wealth of knowledge, right? And just a lot of Boston ties to that group. It brings me to Quinny, right? I said awkward because, yeah, it is awkward, but it takes a big guy, a big man to come in and say, I'm second or third fiddle now. I'm here to help Sully. Okay. Right. And he did work with Sully last year in Pitt. So that's fine. And these guys, it's been enough time. You coach as your coach. You do what your coach tells you to do. He's there to help you, especially as an assistant. It's a lot different when you're an assistant. And I think Quinny would know that. He's a really, really smart guy. And Sully's the boss. And everybody, there's going to be no mistake who the boss is. Right. So I think all in all, yeah, it's a little eyebrow raising that Quinny's back. But I'm happy for them. And if it works, these are great. I've always treated me really well, and I really respect what they know about the game. So, yeah, I'm probably a little biased from a personal relationship with them, but then I know what they can do in terms of coaching and teaching. I think it's a good thing.
I think if Quinn wasn't on Sullivan's staff last season, it would have been a little more weird.
Yeah.
But because it's kind of like they're coming together, they were already together, coming back together. We know that they have such a good relationship. It's not so weird that they're staying together, but the whole premise of Quinn coming back to a few players in that locker room who obviously he coached and somewhat played a role in his firing as well, could potentially make for a bit of a weird vibe, though, don't you think, at least at first?
Yeah, it's right. It's probably a little awkward. But again, I think enough time has passed. I think some of those guys might be coming to camp with their tail between their legs, realizing I better get going here because of last season. So I think all in all, with everything we know, they should all be motivated for the same reasons. It's didn't work once for Quinn. Now let's make it work. If he does, that's a good story. Last year's team was what it was. We turn it around quickly because the East. Look, I think the East is middle heavy. It's any teams can make it. There's not really. The West is better. I'll just leave it at that. It's harder. It's better. It's heavier. Save for the Florida Panthers. Excuse me. Save for the Florida Panthers, obviously, and they're the gold standard. There's a lot of leeway, and there's a lot of teams that you could jump and make the playoffs. If you figure something out, you can catch lightning in a bottle and build from there. But it's not a great spot that they're in. They have to make some changes. There's going to be a little bit of pain. But I don't think they're like a Chicago or a rebuilding.
No, of course not.
What there is almost no way to make a projection for next year at this point. We don't know who's going to be on the team. We have no idea. They're going to break. They are breaking up the Rangers. There's no doubt that that's the intention. At the Combine in Buffalo last week, Chris Drury was essentially talking to everybody. And I was told, and I wrote the other day, that he is committed to changing the chemistry in the room. And I was told that he will, he wants to make multiple moves, even if they're lateral ones, to change the mix. And so, at this point, we're looking at a skeleton. We don't know who's going to be, at training camp when David Quinn walks back through the door. We have no idea at this point. Honestly, I think, you can say Igor Shesterkin will be there. Adam Fox will be there, Artemi Panarin will be there, Will Cooley will be there, JT Miller will be there, Vincent Trocheck will be there, but not
Mika will be there.
Mika probably will be there. Mika probably will be there, but
how do you move on from that?
Well, I think he would be more. Look, I'm not talking for Mika at all.
Yeah.
But I think he would be more amenable to waiving his no move if Chris Kreider's gone. Look, they are best friends.
After he gets paid his bonus.
They are best. What?
After he gets paid his bonus. Look at his salary structure. That's more what I'm talking about.
Right.
I understand.
No, it's foolproof.
Ironclad.
Yeah.
No, it's ironclad, but he's a good player, right? And people and teams around the league may look at him as another guy who just needs a fresh start. And maybe he thinks that way too.
Yeah.
And now that, honestly, that it appears that Kreider will be gone, there's probably more of a chance that Zibanejad would say yes.
Would be willing, yeah.
Than if Kreider were back. I'm not casting aspersions that that's life, right? He's his best friend, and now he's gone, and but again, getting back to the personnel, we just don't know. I mean,
right.
We know that Drury that Drury wants to make multiple changes. So at this point, it's a blank canvas to me, except for 7 or 8 players, and they have to fill out the rest of the roster.
I think Anaheim does need to spend $14 million to get to the floor.
Makes sense.
Yeah, interesting. And Johnny Quick will be there, right?
Right, and Johnny, right.
Larry, you kind of mentioned it a little bit. You're jam-packed regarding the Rangers column earlier this week that led with some insight into Chris Drury's way of thinking this offseason. In addition to that nugget about wanting to change the chemistry in the room, you also mentioned that you feel like it is inevitable that the Rangers move on from K'Andre Miller. What is your pulse on that situation at this moment?
Yeah, I think K'Andre will be traded before July 1st, before he can get to the offer sheet, before he can get to the offer sheet possibility. And I think if he gets to July 1st and gets an offer sheet, I don't think the Rangers will match. I think they feel that they need to move on, they don't want to commit the money that would that K'Andre is seeking on a long-term deal, and so I expect him to be dealt. The one thing that I was told last week, and I guess I should have realized this, but I didn't. Sometimes you don't see the picture. Like someone, I was talking and I suggested that maybe the Rangers, like I really love Alexander Romanov of the Islanders. I really like him a lot.
Yeah.
And he's the kind of player I think the Rangers need. And he's the same age as K'Andre. He's just a different kind of player. And I said, well, maybe, maybe the Rangers could look into, a deal like that. And the guy I was talking to just, burst out into laughter. He said, are you kidding? He said, you think Chris Drury would send K'Andre Miller to the Islanders? I said, well, what's the difference? And he said, he doesn't trade with anybody in the East. He's not going to trade with anyone. He's not going to make a major trade with anyone in the East. And then I look back, and it's nearly every deal he's made is with a Western Conference team. Almost every trade. There have been a few. Pittsburgh, Riley Smith, Florida, Vetrano at the deadline. But almost every major deal has been with a Western Conference team. So I would expect K'Andre Miller to be traded to a Western Conference team.
I heard, if anything, it was a short term. They wouldn't go long term with K'Andre.
No, yeah.
Look, this guy could.
They don't want to commit. They don't want to commit to it.
Right.
He could be a top 10.
They're clearly still not sure, which is also understandable.
And it's frustrating because I think he could be a top 10 defenseman in the league, and that's probably why they couple years.
I think he can too. He has all the tools. I mean, I feel like that's what everybody says about him is he has all the tools. He just hasn't been able to put it together on a consistent basis at all. Right. I feel like we've gone back and forth on Kreider for like a few weeks now since the offseason began, especially with him in need of a new contract as an RFA with arbitration rights. But the other name that Larry and I have both put out there as someone on the Rangers' radar is left-handed defenseman Vladislav Gavrikov, who is a UFA this summer. Mm-hmm. Brian, hypothetically speaking, if the Rangers are able to offload Keandre Miller, either he's offer sheeted or traded or whatever, and they were able to sign Gavrikov, how would you feel about the state of the Rangers D?
Well, I think he would help. I think I think LA really needs him. And that's just, it shows you what he's sort of capable of. I think that is a player that they should be looking at. And when you're desperate, I know Larry's thoughts on this, but you might have to overpay.
I was about to say we're gonna get the counter argument in about 30 seconds.
Well, I mean, it just is what it is, and it's like, what's the window? Is the window now? And maybe they think it can be sooner than later. I just think he helps your D. I don't think their D is big enough. I watch the playoffs pretty closely every year. The same thing wins every year. Mm-hmm. Look at what we're watching right now.
Yeah, oh my God.
That is a different league than the one the Rangers played in this year, right? So,
Brian, can I tell you, I had the same thought watching the last game that I watched. I thought, what game were the Rangers playing at the end of last season? It looks like a completely different game.
Come to my 9:00 beer league tonight. It's closer to that than what we're going to watch tonight in the game.
Seriously, I was like, I almost forgot what hockey looked like, which is really unfortunate that I was thinking that. I'm sorry, Rangers, but it's so wonderful just to see that the same thing wins every year, and then when both teams are so close, all right, then it's between the ears, and you see one team unravel in Game 3. I think it'll probably flip-flop again. 100%. It's unbelievable, and we're not close to that. So does Gavrikov help with what you're going to pay him when that tide eventually turns? What are those years and number going to look like? How old is he?
Well, listen, if the Rangers trade Kreider and they don't get a defenseman back, and they don't get a left defenseman back in that deal, they are essentially looking to fill 50 minutes of even strength ice time on the left. They have Vakanainen. I guess you can pencil him in as their third. Matt Robertson and Zach Jones. That's their left D, absent Kreider. Ryan Lindgren is already gone. So they're going to have to fill, all that. They have to fill top four. They have to get both top four. Now, they could move Braden Schneider to the left, and that's what I think, because I don't want Braden Schneider to be playing on the third pair.
Yeah, he's graduated.
And behind, Adam Fox, obviously, and Will Borgen. I just don't. I mean, you can't have Braden Schneider continuing to be a third pair defenseman. And if the way is to get him into the top four is to move him to the left, then that's the way they should operate.
Proceed.
He's going to have a big year. He's going to take a big step.
I think so too, but he needs to play. He can't be 16 minutes playing on the third pair, right? Can't. Gavrikov would be an instant help. There's no question about it. He would obviously be able to play with Adam Fox. They need someone to play with Adam Fox who might help Adam Fox. But not only are they going to wind up overpaying them, because every free agent is essentially overpaid, right? He's 29, and they're going to wind up giving him a 7-year deal. How many times have we done this? Honestly, I mean, seriously, how many times have we done this?
Well, I want to look at some of the older players now. Maybe those are anomalies, but look at some of the older players now. And you could make an argument that the guys in the playoffs now that are older have certain abilities like the Marchands and even the Corey Perrys. Like these guys,
Oh my God.
they're
What a
incredible.
series both of
But
the players are having.
they're not getting them there. It's the nucleus of the team. They're making big plays at big moments because the rest of the guys, there are guys that get you there, get you to the playoffs, and guys that get you through the playoffs. So what's the need? Well, you got to start at the beginning and get guys that will make your team better to potentially get into the playoffs. Not a ton of miles on Gavrikov if you count. Well,
which I feel like is important because I feel like you look at Adam Fox, you look at Keandre Miller, they've got a lot of miles on them already.
Well, sort of.
For their age.
Right, yeah, right.
For where they're at. If looking at it, I mean, I truly firmly believe that that's like a big thing for Adam Fox is he has been, pushed into the ground for the last few seasons.
Hopefully he's building his engine right now. He's had some time already to heal
Correct.
Right.
Build that engine in the gym. We can talk about that some other time.
Yeah, well, we talked about it last episode, that and a lot of people really agreed. A lot of people concurred with those statements.
Like your 23 is on the board circled every building you go into.
Right.
So time to take another step.
Right. All right. Well, I think that's a pretty good place for us to cut it. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. Subscribe, give us a thumbs up below. Maybe leave us a few comments. What do you think about Chris Kreider heading to Anaheim? What do you think about the new coaching staff hires? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Are you from BU? Are you from BC? Let us know. And we'll chat again the next time there's huge breaking news for the Rangers.